Hi guys, it's MS Scott again, and I'm back with this book, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And I was supposed to have read chapter 5, but I decided I would not. I actually just DNF'd this book for reasons I will get into right now. Chapter 5 is over 100 pages, by the way. At some point you have to realize when you're being had, and there was nothing going on in the chapter, and I was like, this chapter is 100 pages, and I genuinely got kind of upset with the book because I knew it would take forever to read it, the chapter, and then all the stuff I was reading, I was like, this does not even matter to the story. So basically everything you're reading is a waste of time, and I kind of got upset with the book for that reason. But we're gonna get into the first part of chapter 5 because I do have some thoughts on that. If you watched my previous video on chapter 4, you know that I think Henry tripped over a body that was already there in the woods. So I had some questions, and those questions that I had for chapter 4 were actually addressed in chapter 5. I'm sorry, I keep looking that way and my camera's here. So the main thing is they didn't go for help when they found the body. And apparently it's because they thought the police would think they committed all of the unsolved murders in that part of town. Why would the police think you did all of them just because they found you naked in the woods? I have a problem with that statement anyways because I didn't dog ear the page. I gotta look for it. So when there's an emergency or an accident happens, or I don't know, you kill somebody on accident, the default instinct is for you to go get help. You call for help, you run for help, you just go get help. That's a default instinct, and so you don't actually need to be in your right mind to make that decision because it's not a decision that you're making, it's just instinct. You do need to be in your right mind to strategize, and that's where I'm having a problem believing these guys, because they claim that they were not in their right mind per se, but they had all these reasons for not getting help. And I understand that some time has passed between the murder and them cleaning up, but in the moment and the time of the murder, those minutes, why did you not go for help? Even if you didn't go for help, you're not in your right state of mind, so you're not at that point strategizing. So you actually don't have any way of getting this outcome that you got. So I'll read you a passage on what's going on, who is this? Francis is saying. I'm sorry, not Francis, Henry. I wonder if you understand what sort of state we were in. Scarcely an hour before, we'd all been really, truly out of our minds. And it may be a superhuman effort to lose oneself so completely, but that's nothing compared to the effort of getting oneself back again. You just said you were mentally unstable. All the reasons you're giving for not going to the police would not have been reasons at all in that moment. You would not have been able to strategize. I don't know for sure if you would have gone to the police or not, but you sure as heck would not have made a strategy because you're out of your mind. And I know in the passage that I just read, it says an hour later, but also in the passage it says it takes a lot of effort to get yourself back once you have been out of it. And so does it only take an hour? Because that's not a lot of effort. So another reason why they don't want to turn themselves into the police, is because they don't think that they'll be tried fairly. A panel of jurors that would come would not be from their peers. My problem with that statement is, how do you know that? And I understand that Henry is narrating the book and he's an unreliable narrator, but the book has already portrayed the characters as living in their own little bubble. So much so that they don't even know when man walked on the moon. Like, Henry was so surprised that man had walked on the moon. National news, right? And he had known nothing about it. But somehow, you know the court proceedings of a state you're not even from. Like, how do you know? When did that come up? Because the state I'm from, I don't know the court proceedings. The average person does not know the court proceedings of their state. That's something that you learn when you go into law or when you get into trouble. So maybe you got into trouble in the past. I don't know. If that is the case, someone comment below, because I'm not going to get far enough in the book to let more backstory come out. But yeah, typically you do not know, or you're unaware of, the court proceedings in your own state, let alone the court proceedings in another state you're not from. So, how do you know that? 2, you cannot take that into account in the moment of the murder because you're out of your mind, you're mentally unstable. So that wouldn't be an actual deciding factor. They also feel that the panel of jurors will kind of be biased against them because they are outsiders and they are rich and the guy that they killed is poor. Again, you cannot take that information into account at the time of the murder because 1, you're out of your mind, which you just said. 2, it's dark, which you said it was so dark you could barely see anything. You said that in chapter 4. So how would you know this guy isn't rich in chapter 4 when you found him? You wouldn't know that based on his appearance because you can't see anything. And you wouldn't even know that based on his location. You wouldn't even know if he's a native of Vermont, because the 4 of you aren't natives and you're there. The land you're visiting, if it's owned by a rich person, the land adjacent to that is also owned by a rich person. That's how real estate works. Land that's grouped together in an area usually have the same market value and usually attract the same buyers in a similar tax bracket. Land is not cheap. Okay. So why would you assume this fellow is not rich? So, all that being said, leads me to believe that you don't really understand what happened in the moment, and how could you? You were out of your mind. It was dark. You couldn't see anything, which means that all the information you're telling Richard now is stuff that you researched way after the fact, because it wouldn't be things that you knew at the moment of the murder. And y'all let me know if that is the case, if that's what comes out in the book, the remainder of the book. Because if not, if they don't come clean about that, you didn't know these things in the moment, then I'm sorry, the book has a huge pothole. Also, and this is what I'm talking about, Henry and Frances are telling Richard what went down, and this lady, the writer decides to spend almost like a page or something, at least a few paragraphs, talking about Bunny scrutinizing Richard's clothing. Why are we now talking about clothing right in the middle of discussing a murder? And taking too long to discuss that murder, by the way. Let's just get into the cons of the book now. This is why I DNF'd the book. The book is bogged down with irrelevant information. What's happening in chapter 5 is a pure info dump. It's really not indicative of good writing to do that. The characters are not interesting. It's the characters not being interesting, coupled with all of the irrelevant information that makes the book such a struggle to read. The pros of the book are the writing style and also the atmosphere. But the pace of the story is detracting from that, and also the characters are detracting from that. Perhaps you guys can continue on with this book because The writing style is enough for you. The atmosphere is enough for you. And you can overlook the bogged down pace of the book, and you can overlook the characters not being interesting. I cannot. Taking away time from other books I could be reading. Chapter 5 would have been the end of part 1. I'm sorry, nothing really happened in part 1. 200 pages in, you're only on chapter 5, and nothing is happening. Sorry, you guys, I just didn't get on with it. Bye.